I got a light on the left side. Light! He has a light on the left. Ah! Doc! I think something's broken. Go. Where? Doc. Where? Get out of the Humvee. Where? Doc!
You know, we failed everybody collectively. Yuri and I did, because we've already had this conversation once, and I'll own all of it because it's a new system, and we didn't know that when you got disconnected, it stops the recording. So this is the second time we'll be trying to do this, but it is the first that we will make public of the new way that we're going to be having a chat with folks that are on the ground. So welcome back, buddy. You're safe right now,
Yes.
correct? You're somewhere in the rear on R&R type deal?
I'm on, I'm in this is my apartment where I'm at right now. This is my house.
So you own that apartment. That's home
this
for
is
you,
my
is
home.
what you're getting at.
And like I said to you on the last time we did this is like the 6th time I'm coming up pretty soon to my 1-year anniversary of being in Ukraine since I arrived here March 13th of last year. And this is like the sixth time I've been in my apartment. And this has also been the longest period of time I've been in my apartment this past year.
Are you getting restless?
A bit. I mean, my guys are going out on mission. I'm looking in the group chat, and they're getting to do some fun shit that I, enjoy doing. But, I had a fractured orbital. They removed the shrapnel.
Yeah, there's a reason you're in the rear.
Yeah.
You were hit by a Cornet missile.
Yeah.
Not to make light of that. I'm just kind of reminding folks that there's a reason you're taking a little bit of R&R.
And this is the longest time. So I had 36 hours after I got hit by the tank shell. I had 36 hours because it was coming up to some anniversary, or it was coming up to Ukrainian Independence Day back in August. And freaking, I had to be back to the front in case Russia tried to do some grandiose push or offensive maneuver. And that was before our offensive. So I only got 36 hours, and most of that time was spent on the trains coming out here. I came here in the morning, like early morning, got the new plate carrier that I had here. So I swapped out the parts of my plate carrier with another plate carrier that I had stored here, and then I went back to the front that same evening in order to make that 36-hour window. But this was this time right now is the longest I've been in Ukraine, been in my apartment in this past year.
So we just lost Yuri again. One of the challenges we'll continuously deal with trying to talk with people on the ground is connection. You can see it. All right, we're back. So I don't remember what we were talking about, but I would love for you to just hold up what you just showed me while we were getting reconnected.
So that the SBU
that
can
is just
fucking
that you found just in a
just
bag.
kick in my door.
So okay, fine.
Oh my god.
Well, I guess because you probably shouldn't have a rocket.
Here's the thing. When I was living in Mykolaiv, it is a tandem warhead RPG-7 round. So this has a fucking heat round in it. This has a heat round in it. This is the same size heat round as the fucking...
And we lost you again.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Hi.
People...
You're a popular guy, man. People keep calling and using up all the hamster bandwidth.
But yeah, so the rocket freaking when I was living in Mykolaiv, we were actually under threat of being the Russians pushing into the city. Like there's still a strong threat of that.
Mm-hmm.
So my apartment in Mykolaiv, I had javelins, AT-4s, a Mon 90, which is like a fat Claymore mine, freaking tons of, like, some in-laws, some javelins, everything you could possibly think of, just stacked in my apartment like it was normal.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were kind of mid conversation. You got up and left, and then you came back with a tandem warhead rocket and just said, "Look what I found in my bags."
Going through my bag. It's going to be a thing where I'm going to be going through pouches and bags for like the next decade, and a fucking hand grenade's going to fall out of it, and I'm like, oh shit, I remember when I put that there. Oh god.
I like like we were talking about before we were recording. All that comes to mind is the old no brass, no ammo. When you get off the live range, all the brass, all the ammo, all the hand grenades are gonna just fall out of your pockets. So let's talk about the Cornet strike, man. Because when the video opens, most folks are gonna catch a short snippet of you getting hit by an anti-tank
that was designed to defeat
the
Abrams. Well, it didn't directly hit us, but the blast and pressure wave was enough to fuck up our Humvee, fuck up Doc, fucking fuck up our TC. The driver's unscathed, absolutely. But he's normal like that. His nickname's Immortal because he's been through probably more explosions than I have. And then. Yeah,
that's something to say. You've been through what?
I've survived 5 times that on paper. If you look at the weapon system that almost ended me, theoretically I should have died 5 times. So that was the first one was the tank shell. It exploded behind me. It took out the 2 guys I was right behind me, and a piece of shrapnel blew through my IFAK. The second time was a freaking artillery round that. When you hear the artillery come in, you hear the pop, you hear the whoosh, and then the artillery explodes. Well, normally when you hear the pop and the first part of the whoosh, you generally get down on the ground, and hopefully it doesn't hit on top or near you, and you survive. And I was going through this field, and there's a ditch, and I knew that the ditch was there, so instead of dropping down right when I heard the pop and the whoosh, I decided to jump through the air into the ditch, and luckily I did because the artillery round exploded on the top of the ditch and threw all that debris down on top of me. And the third one was the anti-tank mine, which people think was CGI, was fake, that it was not me inside that turret, despite me having the video footage of it, or it was an anti-personnel mine. So, and then third time was
there's been a wave of
this war.
There's been a wave of people that have been saying that the war is fake. I don't know what it is, but over the last month or so, I've seen more and more. Really mushy brain takes that, the war is fake. There's no footage. I happen to feel as though I'm one of the folks that could say there is an innumerable
I can
amount
say
of footage
with
from this war.
100% certainty that this war is real. I absolutely confirm that there's actual fighting happening here in this area. Yeah, a lot of it.
A lot of
like
it.
I laugh. There's some people that the one thing that gets me the best is the guy that shows the apartment building that got hit by the missile in the very beginning of the war, where it was caught on CC camera. And goes through the side of the building. I have physically took the subways to where that building was and looked at that building to see it with my own eyes. Because I knew the neighborhood that building was in, and then my friend gave me the address of where that building was at. And so I walk there and I see it, and then I'm going to go back there next time I go to Kiev and look at that building again. Because there's a photograph, the guy's like showing a photograph, he's like, oh, here's the building destroyed, and a few months later, it's perfectly fine, this war is fake.
Yeah, I mean, it's because they're preferred media outlet doesn't choose to cover, as much of the war as theoretically it should. In my opinion, the war in Ukraine is really the first peer v peer, from a geopolitical perspective, impactful war that we've seen in a long time, right? There's a reason that there's so much footage of it that we cover, not just because of saturation, just because of the necessity to show what a war where you have trenches, and alongside trenches you have precision munitions looks like, which
drones
is
and tanks.
horrifying.
Tanks that were developed to combat the trenches are now afraid of the trenches.
Yeah, there's a lot of footage, and people claiming that there isn't any is general ignorance. It is really no low level of effort to find it, because it's one Google search away, or
they were
website
talking about this a while back. There was a raid that happened a few weeks ago, in Zaporizhia city, the city of Zaporizhia, or the region of Zaporizhia. I don't remember which, but it was a Russian cyber group that was there, and they secured several thousand SIM cards. And when you have a SIM card, you can create a unique social media account off of that, right? So you can have a verified social media account off of that one SIM card, opposed to just using an email and then just having your email registered to a social media account, and you could have millions of those, right? So that it makes it harder for these accounts to get pulled down because they're verified off of some, phone number or some unique SIM card. And
yeah, Russia's from an information warfare perspective, they're
Yeah.
I mean, they're pretty good at it. When I was going through, and I don't know if you know this, but I was an information operations planner and a military deception planner. And when we were training to do what we do, some of their works and campaigns and TTPs were things that we trained on, that we reviewed, that we compared to some of our own capabilities. And one of the things that keeps them so good is just the general lack of red tape, to be honest with you. The decision to use those SIM cards could have just been a colonel, general, whatever. Russia has some really weird fucking a bad word. Beep. Russia has some really weird ranks that I still don't truly understand. But you understand what I mean. So let's go back to the Cornet though, man. Right. So first of all, how's Doc?
He's doing better. I mean, he's now back in the States. He's getting medical treatment. I talk to him every day, every other day, if he's up for it. He's still. We still discuss that night. He's sad that we're still out here. He's still part of the group chats, so he gets to see all the updates and about the when the guys are coming back from mission, or the stuff that we talk about in the group chats. So he's sad that he's not out here. He's sad that he had to go.
For those that aren't familiar, what were the extent of yours and Doc's injuries?
So I received a piece of shrapnel in my right hand. I received a piece of micro shrapnel in my eyeball that they had to take out with the needle. I received.
Yeah, you sent me pictures of that, and I
did you those metal bar things that my chin was resting on. They have like little fucking dimples now where my knuckles or where my fingers were just gripping that. What we're talking about for you guys out there is I had a piece of micro shrapnel, like itty bitty tiny piece of micro shrapnel, started affecting my eyeball, started hurting, and they took like a a microscope basically, and they put it up to my eye, and they were able to find the piece of micro shrapnel in my eyeball. And it was they took a magnet, it didn't come out, so it was either titanium or aluminum or non-ferrous, non-magnetic. So they had to take a needle top. I think I have it right here. Here on good. They took this needle, this exact one, which they gave me as a souvenir, and don't know why I still keep it, but they took that needle and they put it into the cornea of my eye in order to extract that piece of micro shrapnel.
Yeah, I would have thrown that needle away immediately so that I could forget.
My only phobia or fear is anything going in my eyes. Like, I can't wear contacts. It's a fight or struggle just to get eye drops into my eyes. When I was younger, it was horrible. Now it's a little bit more manageable, but I hate things going in my eye.
And you had to watch that needle come in.
And I had to open my eyes all wide and just sit there. Ripping the crap out of that headrest thing and just not moving my head.
I had forgotten about this part of our conversation last time, and I could have gone the rest of my life not remembering this part of the.
It was a 30-second procedure that took over 30 minutes.
So for those kind of following along with yours and Doc's story, a lot of people are going to be familiar that there was a GoFundMe that was stood up for Doc. We're going to have that link down in the description of wherever this is playing, and I'll get with you, to help point me towards where to find that so I can put it in the description. But it sounds like you're on the mend. Is there at some point that you're going to be headed back to the forward line? Wherever that is. By
time this is live, by time you post this, I'll already be back with my guys. So,
Okay. What if I posted it?
I don't think you'd have the editing done by now.
I'm pretty quick.
That's why she complains.
No, I don't. This will probably be live within the next 48 or so. One of the reasons I like using the system that we're using here is it'll do a lot of the editing for me. No, it didn't. And then all I need to do, since we've had to restart the recording a couple times, is splice that stuff together with some minor adjustments here and there.
Throw in some photos.
The intent of using this, and overlay photos on top of it, including the one of you with the thing in the eyeball and
video the cord hitting.
But it should allow us to really, subject to connection on both sides, be able to kind of rapidly capture thoughts, discussions from those on the ground. Yeah. In theory, at least, we'll see how it works.
I'm still the first one. I'm still the first one on this new setup, right?
Yep, you sure are. I've done one test with Will. Will is our team member that actually went on ground to Ukraine with GSMSG. So I did one test with him.
That was the guy that was mostly just already out here as it started, right?
No, he went there in August, I want to say it was. So in August, he traveled to Ukraine with Global Surgical and Medical Support Group, primarily just tagging along with them, helping them out with TCCC type training, medical training. And he was there for about 2.5, 3 weeks, something along those lines. But he was on ground in around August. So I've done one test with Will. We did our call last week that you and I had, and then it's today. So very new capability for us, but I think it's going to be pretty good.
And then, so other than the shrapnel, the micro shrapnel in the eye, fractured left orbital, left sinus got filled, blood vessel ruptured in the left sinus or something that got a clot in it. That thing almost got infected. like I could actually feel the infection coming in. Like just my body was fighting it. I got that.
Did you just start to feel
Yeah,
like
swelling. It was
swelling,
getting
and
all
it
hot.
was just like,
For a week or so, you know, when you're sick and you have that like that phlegmy mucus stuff, it's that yellowish green stuff. When you like hack it out,
yeah, oh, yeah.
mine was brownish, blackish red, and I needed to drain all of that out of my sinuses and take special, you know, pills and stuff to help prevent infection and stuff from there. So antibiotics and stuff. So yeah. And then we had, and then
Okay,
Geo,
so
of course.
and what are the extent of Doc's? Yeah, Geo.
He lost his right eye. He has fractures on the right side of his head. He has shrapnel in his right arm. That's going to be with him for the rest of his life.
They can't remove
I don't
that?
know the extent. He hasn't told me, like maybe it's near a nerve or near a tendon or something that they can't operate into. I guess it's also non-magnetic. Okay. When I got hit by the anti-tank mine, all the shrapnel that was in my body was magnetic, and they literally just took a huge rare earth magnet and then just pulled all that stuff out of me. And that was just basically because the mine was metal, the inside the Humvee was primarily metal. So that's what, messed me up the most. But then with the Cornet, it's aluminum and titanium construction. So maybe some steel here and there,
yeah.
But the amount of shrapnel that
mostly non-magnetic, non-ferrous metals that they can't.
Well,
really
they can find them on the X-rays pretty well, but they can't pull it out of you.
Yeah,
and that's one of the suckier parts about this. Like we've got guys that they've been injured by wood. They got wood shrapnel in them, secondaries and stuff. The guy that I was in the hospital with, he was in the same room as me. They had surgery on him to remove a rock that turned into shrapnel and that went into his leg. So my trophy is a small.
Yes, that's something that people don't account for very often is secondary fragmentation. You've got the primary, which is what's designed to fragment from the munition itself. Then you have all that secondary rock, wood, bone, all the extra stuff that gets propelled from the explosive blast.
So, yeah. So that's, and I'm only saying what Doc has mentioned on his posts and stuff. So, trauma to the right side of his head, trauma to his right eye, his right arm has shrapnel in it, and he's had some shrapnel removed. Some of it's going to be with him for the rest of his life.
So did everybody survive?
Yeah, everybody survived. The TC, he had his door opened so that he could get radio signal from his radio. So when we're communicating with the other vehicle and our base, the overpressure blew him out of the vehicle. So in the video, when you guys hear me shouting for Manak, which is his call sign, it's because I can't feel him, like I'm reaching onto his seat. When I got thrown down onto the platform, I could feel Geo, but I could not feel Manak, and we didn't care about the driver. We discussed the driver. We're laughing about the fact that I don't ever check on the driver, even though the driver's the one that checks on me and helps me out of the vehicle. But yeah, he's immortal. But he comes to the hospital and he's joking around, and like Manak and I are just sitting there in the hospital. And Doc is already being prepared to get moved to another hospital. And he's just strolls in and he's like, hey, we got to go do this stupid mission it's a stupid fucking mission that we've been trying to do for the last couple weeks, but shit just doesn't allow us to do that mission. And he's like, well, we're doing that mission tonight. He's joking around about it, and one day our discuss about that mission. But I was like, when we were in the hospital, I was like, this is why I didn't shout for you. This is why I didn't make sure you were okay, because nobody cared about you. Just kind of joking in between us in the vehicle.
I mean, in my mind, you guys are both
Yeah,
to a certain extent immortal. You mentioned five times now that theoretically you should have died, right? And I think one of the things that a lot of folks that might not be following your story, one of the things they might not know is that you consider yourself to be Ukrainian.
Yeah,
right? That's your home.
I am in my house.
At home right
I
now.
pay taxes on this property. I purchased this property a decade ago.
Yeah.
I've renovated this property. I put a fucking water tank.
Do you get labeled as like a mercenary at all?
Yeah, they constantly, the Russians and sometimes the Western guys, so Americans mostly, or the pro-Russian or anti-Ukrainian Americans, they label me as a mercenary. Or they're saying, oh, this is what you get on the anti-tank video. There's a lot of them. Oh, this is what happens when you go on safari in Ukraine. Like, I'm coming here just to, fulfill some need that I'm not getting, or some, to do something with my life that is not being fulfilled in America.
But you had made the decision to go to Ukraine long before war had its grips on the country, though.
Long before I even knew that Ukraine could have been invaded from Russia, I wanted to make Ukraine, a place that I wanted to live.
What was that initial decision point, or how did you come to that decision originally? That would have been what, 2008?
Yeah, 2008. So 2008 was the first time I came to Ukraine, and I just love the people. I love the culture. I love the country. It was very nice and laid back. The mass transit. If I wanted to, I could go to I can be in any city in Ukraine in like 24 hours on a train and spend the equivalent of $5 or $6. In America, I could spend like $4 to get onto a bus for a single ride. And if that bus is taking me, to another, I have to transfer over. If I don't have like a bus pass or something, it's going to be, an expensive trip for me to go anywhere in America. So it was just a very unique experience for me when I first came out here. And, I enjoyed myself out here. I enjoyed, the people that I met. They were very friendly and warm and giving, and it was something that was different from my life in America.
Now, is it tough for you, or do you mostly ignore it? I know it has to invoke some kind of emotion when
I literally just copy and paste the video of me explaining why I'm in Ukraine. I wanted to do a Russian version of that. Like, I was going to have it dubbed over or something, but never got around to actually doing a Russian dubbed version of why I'm in Ukraine, why I decided to move here.
So I mean, you've told me you've been called CIA operative.
Oh yeah,
obviously a mercenary at this point. And it seems as though it just stems from the fact that you don't have a Ukrainian accent. You speak English, but in that really appears to be the only basis that people have for saying those kinds of things.
On my video from why I'm in Ukraine, that's on my YouTube channel, there's a thread about how I'm a CIA operative, and this is all just cover story, that my 214 is fake, DD 214, my paperwork that you get when you get out of the military. I took a photo of it, or it was a scanned copy of it, and the bottom left corner says, gives the address to where you're going to be after separation. And I decided that I was going to put my address in Ukraine. So it was another address that I had at the time. It was not a rental property, but a property of a friend of mine. And they were allowing me to use that address as a home of record for when I got out, because I was planning on buying this place. Well, I didn't even know this place existed until I started shopping around for it. But
And when was that? When did you
2012.
discharge?
2012.
2012.
And
Okay.
this place was purchased in 2012 and renovated, and they say that the visa, the 2012 to 2013 visa that I have in my passport, that's fake. I gave you a tour earlier this evening of my apartment, and inside this entire apartment, when I first came to Ukraine, I was told by a group of people that I had befriended that there was a possibility that if certain events happened, Russia would try to annex Ukraine. That this was absolutely, if Ukraine's political system ever shifted away from Russia, Putin would annex Ukraine. And I was like, no, you guys are just paranoid, preppers and stuff like that. The kinds of guys that say that the boogaloo is going to happen. And
well, in my opinion, so far, it's only a conspiracy until until it happens.
Yeah,
because at this point, I'm starting to need some new conspiracy theories. They're all coming true. Okay, like starting to get a little weird.
Oh, my dreams are coming true. We talked about this last time, right?
Maybe.
Where the first dream I had was I had a dream where we were doing our runs in one of the fields and we hit an anti-tank mine.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah.
And I was firing the 50 cal so the guys could get out of the Humvee to the tree line, and then when they got into the tree line, I left the Humvee and they covered me, and I got to the tree line and we all exfilled back to friendly lines, right? And then a few months later, we hit an anti-tank mine. Then I had another dream. So some of the missions we were going on, we wanted to find where their Hornet missile stations were so that we could take them out in this one area in the Mykolaiv region. So we're driving around in the field with the Humvees, hoping that the Humvees are faster than the missiles, they travel at like 300 meters a second, which is slow in terms of ordnance.
Slow in comparison.
Yeah.
Slow in comparison.
Yeah.
In a relative sense.
And they were having trouble they're having trouble with the Hornets. There was one mission we were on where they fired like a dozen Hornets at us while we were on foot. We were walking and they were firing Hornets at us, and it got to the point in where we didn't even bother getting down and taking cover when we heard them fire, because they weren't even hitting anywhere near us. We just kept on running, and these Hornets are just exploding around us, 50, 60, 100 meters away. So anyway, so the second dream was we were doing this mission where we're driving around in the field and they fired a Hornet at us. And right as I see the Hornet flying, and I just shoot it down with the Browning, and, I wake up and I was like, oh, that would be a really cool dream. And then, several months later, I get hit by a fucking Hornet missile.
You need to have a dream where you just randomly stumble upon a couple $1 billion.
Yeah, I have a dream where I win the lottery. But
does Ukraine have a lottery?
Yeah, like every country has a lottery system. Like it's not as big as like Americans' lottery systems. You can win probably a few $1,000 off of it.
Do you play the lottery often?
No, I only played it in America a few times when like the payout's like over $1 billion. You know,
I think you're rolling the dice quite a bit right now, boss. If you
any
if you're
any
gambling enough,
anything under $1 billion's not worth my time. But the I was actually interviewed right after the first video of where I'm firing the AT4s into the house, and the guy was like, what do you want? What do you hope for? And I said, I hope that this winter is a very mild and warm winter for Europe, and it happened. So hopefully my next.
now mild is also relative because I mean it was still cold, wasn't it?
Not really. I mean, it was
Really?
literally. So it snowed today. It snowed a couple days ago, but by the afternoon the snow's gone. Like it will snow at night. It will go below freezing at night, but then during the day it warms up, which melts the snow, which makes that slushy, fucking muddy conditions. And all of December, our like I didn't do any Humvee. I did a couple Humvee shits in December, but the majority of the missions I went on, we had to go on foot because we couldn't drive the Humvees out to those locations because of the mud.
Too muddy?
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
Humvees would get there, but they would be slow and cumbersome, and easy to be taken out by a drone or some artillery, right? And in December was the fourth time I almost died. We were in a fighting. We were in a trench system when we were engaging the Russians, and a freaking RPG flew right past my head and exploded into the muddy berm right behind me. And because of the thick mud, the Ukrainian mud, it absorbed. Like the rocket went into the mud and then exploded in the mud. It absorbed all that explosive power and just threw a whole bunch of mud on top of me, and I got this nice big piece of the warhead that was inside the trench with me. So that was in.
I feel like you only have so many of those, Yuri.
Uh, we're working on the premise that I am quantum immortal.
There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. there's
I
there's a
know, man.
fine line, boss.
I deserve. I deserve a little bit. I deserve
You
something.
do.
It's been.
But woof, dude. But I mean, again, from your perspective,
I survived.
from
I survived 3 cruise missiles. I was actually in the vicinity of 3 cruise missiles, I should say. I've had aerial bombs drop near our position. I mean, the war really became real this one night when we were in the Mykolaiv region and a jet flew over us and dropped, it's not a JDAM. It's probably like a 200 or 250 pound bomb or something. It still rattled the shit out of the building we were in, but dropped it like maybe a kilometer, 750 meters or so away from us. And it just freaking lit up the night sky and just shook the shit out of the building we were in. And in the video, you could hear me shouting that, oh, that's a fucking jet. They just fucking bombed us. This is the happiest day of my life.
why would that have been the happiest day of your life? Because you survived it?
It was, yeah, I survived a bomb. Our position got bombed by a Russian jet. And, I've been in the vicinity of one American bomb, and that was at a freaking joint training thing on drone. Like they dropped a bomb from an A-10, and it wasn't super close to us, but it was, you could still feel the pressure wave and stuff, right? And that was during training. And that was like the coolest. Like everybody's all shouting and stuff. And there's video. I have to look for it. Of like everybody's like, yeah, woo! And I was like, it's just like a big firework. But this time it was the adrenaline, and then just understanding that this jet came in at like 1 o'clock in the morning to drop a bomb on one of our positions, and they still missed. I mean, they didn't hit anybody. They didn't hit any of the Ukrainians that were in the area. They didn't hit any of us. But it was just, I don't know, it was this weird feeling that it just came out of my mouth, that like it was it was so it was so unreal to me at that moment until that happened, and then like the realization came in, because then a couple days later, um, we were trying to shoot down a hind with RSG 90s because we didn't have the stingers with us, and there's a whole story behind that incident, and just that was also the reason that I left I was a part of the International Legion at the beginning of the war. That day was the reason why I decided to leave the Legion, and was lucky enough to come into this team that I'm part of now.
Which is a part of the Ukrainian military. Like, you have a contract with
Yeah,
Ukraine's military.
which is the Ukrainian military. Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, again, the perspective for people to better understand is, you're not there as an American, or at least in your mind, right? So from your perspective, you're not there as an American fighting for Ukraine. You're there because you are trying to make Ukraine your home, so you're defending your homeland.
Yes. This is my home. This is the home of my friends, their families. I will have a family here. I have businesses here. I have my house here.
What does that mean for your American citizenship, if anything?
This is nothing. I mean, I don't have to give up my American citizenship. I do not have to give up my property in America. I can't bring a lot of the stuff that I have out in America into Ukraine, either now at this time or, even in the remote future. So all my guns and stuff that are in America, those are going to stay in America. I have property out there that they can stay at. I'm starting, part of my business is I own a manufacturing company. I am a manufacturing company with CNC machines and stuff like that. And I'm going to have half of it in America doing Type 10 stuff, and the other half out here doing stuff for, hopefully can get some contracts with the Ukrainian government to make spare parts and stuff for a lot of the Western systems, or even some of the older Soviet systems that are, here in Ukraine.
Help folks understand what Type 10 stuff means.
So, in order to build things like armor-piercing ammunition and explosive devices, you need a license from the ATF, and this particular one's a Type 10 manufacturing license. So it's going to be, I was working on it right before the war had broken out, me and some other partners, and we were going to actually be producing mortar components, artillery components, and RPGs. So we were going to knock out American-produced RPG-7 warheads, because I have manufacturing blueprints for all those things, and not the full heat-charged warhead. Basically, this piece, the warhead itself, but we wouldn't make them explosive, but we would make the sustaining tubes and the boosters, which are those fins. It looks like a paper towel tube, and inside is fins, and when that thing ignites, the cardboard tube around it gets ignited and blown apart, and it fires the rocket out the tube, and the fins deploy. So I was actually going to be manufacturing the fins and the sustainer motors and warhead tops for R&D purposes, or there's Airtronics out in Texas. I was going to reach out to them after we started up our manufacturing and be like, hey, we can provide you with American-made warheads.
Yeah, so they make the launcher, right? They make an Americanized version of the launcher for the RPG.
Yes, and we actually have one of their launchers in our unit.
What's your
but I still.
if you had to choose, understanding that there's differences between the RPG and the AT4, but if you had to choose, if you only had one shot, one opportunity, would it be an RPG
I'm
or an
actually
AT4?
I'm actually making a video on it. I was gonna compare the RPG to the Carl Gustav,
Okay.
two weapon systems that I have extensive experience with in this country. And I was gonna save it for the video, but just spoilers for whoever watches that video if I ever get around to finishing it. RPG 7.
Really? Why?
They're not horrible. Yeah, they're not horribly. A lot of people are like, oh, they're horribly inaccurate. I'm going to do an accuracy test with it. 2, 3, 400-yard targets, and they hit. If you know what you're doing, these things hit. It's not like I fire it and it flies out to some other direction. They're lighter weight than the Carl G. The ammunition is lighter weight than the Carl G. It doesn't have the punch that the Carl G or the range the Carl G has. So, if it's a mission where we might be going up against enemy armor or enemy vehicles, I would take the RPG-7. If it's a mission specifically to hunt a tank, like we've done before, I'm taking the Carl Gustav. It's going to have better accuracy at further range, and you got that standoff range. But if there was this mission we had where the first time I ever engaged an enemy vehicle with an AT4 was we had this BTR coming in, and it started engaging our guys, and I'm on a flanked position, and it's in the early morning, and I fire off the AT4, and it explodes like right in front of the BTR, and then he nopes the fuck out. Like he's shooting, supporting the Russians, shooting at our guys, and then the AT4 just explodes in front of him. And I guess he thought it was like a NLAW or a fucking javelin or something. And you just see him back up and drive away as quickly as possible. So, and then a few missions later, I don't know if it was the same BTR, but I then got another BTR and hit it fucking broad freaking hit it with the AT4.
So as far as and I was leading to this question a little bit earlier. You've shared, and I'm really just going to go off of stuff that you've shared, to Instagram or on your YouTube. You were a part, at least to some degree, with the counteroffensives in Kherson, right?
Yes. So at the beginning of the Kherson counteroffensive, which was supposed to be the fake counteroffensive so that they can gain control up in the Kharkiv region, we did a lot. Our team was responsible in our AO for doing a lot of the setting the conditions for the offensive. So,
what does setting conditions mean for?
So,
in
order
your context?
We needed to disrupt enemy supplies to certain areas. We needed to disrupt enemy freedom of movement. We needed to make the enemy think that this area was somewhere we were going to assault over this area. Even though Russia has all these troops, all this equipment, all this material left over from the Soviet Union, it's still a finite amount, right? So if they're going to dedicate all these troops, all this armor, all this for this area over here, I mean, that's what happened with the whole offensive. They pushed all their good units down to Kherson because it was a very likely thing that we were going to hit Kherson. And our teams were going out. We were doing stuff. I was going upwards of 10 kilometers behind enemy lines. We were sleeping in villages that were occupied by the Russians. Like, we are inside this house, and 3 doors down, 2 doors down, are Russians having a barbecue. They're walking in the streets out in front of us. There was a mortar team on a truck and they had like a 120, and they're driving into the field right behind the house, and we could hear them fire off some mortars, collect that thing, and pack it up and drive it elsewhere.
So you're out there performing, in that instance, some form of like a recce, gather information, relay back.
Gather information, call in artillery support. One of the coolest things I got to do out here is I got to call in artillery support on my phone. Like, this was a fucking video game, man. I got an app on my phone that just kind of think of Google Maps, and it will show me, even without my locator on, I know where I am, right? Because the mission brief and everything else like that. I can take my position, and then I can be like, well, this position is at this azimuth. They're this, however far away, this many meters away. And I can see that on my phone. I can plot that on my phone, and I can call in artillery to that position. It gives me the grid coordinates. It's an XYZ grid coordinates, not like our 8-digit or anything like that.
MGRS, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. I was trying to remember that name. So it's literally XYZ, right? And I'll call that in, and I will see where that artillery round lands, and then I'll just correct it from there. I was like, oh, well, that round landed over here, and I'll put where I think the round landed on the thing, and then they'll give me the correction. And I'll be like, okay, well, you got to correct your tube to this, and then the next round would, be over, under, whatever, or on top of the people. And that was one of the more interesting things that I got to do during this conflict.
Have you been a part of any of the raids across the river in the south?
I have not gone across the river.
Okay.
The only time that I ever saw the Dnieper River from Kherson was when our unit had to perform security details on the bridge.
The Antonovsky
and
Bridge.
We were there for several days. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got I'll overlay a photo of that here. You got a photo of you with the Antonovsky in the background. I was actually just looking at that earlier.
Well, the one with me with the fucking AK?
Yeah, the one with the AK.
God, all right. I hated that AK. So that photo was taken like 4 days after my Humvee exploded. I only had like 2 days of recovery time, but like everybody else is going into Kherson, and I was like, I want to go into Kherson. I want to be a part of this. And the only AK available was teammates of mine who walked into a gun store here in Ukraine and just bought everything that would mount on his AK, and he put it on the AK, and he's like, "Oh, look how tactical my AK is."
Are you a purist with the AK? You have to have wood furniture and
No, Like my AK, I'll send you a photo of what my AK looked like when I was running these recce's, so you should probably be able to overlay it right now. But I had a collapsible stock on it, and that was only because that was a gift. That stock was a gift from my friends. They're like, here, Yuri, we wanted to present you with this gift. So I put it on my AK, and then you see that there is the plastic forward grip, the under grip. The top one's still wood. It had a plastic one as well, but the wood one weighed like a few ounces less than the plastic one. And the only reason I had the plastic bottom one was so that I could have that forward grip on it. And other than that, I don't do anything else with my AK. Like I didn't go out and buy a railed top cover so I could put some optic on it and do all that other bullshit. Although I would prefer to have an optic on my weapon systems. Those top cover optics are kind of finicky.
Yeah, because it's not like the AR, because especially when you have to do any kind of preventative maintenance, or not preventative maintenance, but maintenance on an AK, and you have to remove that top cover, you're also removing and moving your optic as well.
Yep. And it's okay if you're doing like a reflex and you're lollipopping the reflex and you're expecting only to get into engagements that are like, close quarters kind of stuff. But and the only reason why I ran an AK, and that's an AKM that you see, that's 7.62, is because it's a 7.62 weapon. The 5.45 and 5.56 weapons out here, those are really light bullets. They don't have the psychological effect that a heavier round. When you get shot at, you can kind of tell what caliber they're shooting at you with. I've been shot at by 5.45, 7.62, both the 7.62 by 39 as well as the 54 from the PKMs. I've been shot at by Russian 50 cal, and I've been shot at by fucking 30 millimeter in terms of full automatic weapons, right? And you could really tell the difference between the 5.45 and the 7.62 when it's flying at you. And it's more of a concerning feeling when you have that. And that's also why I went with my M14 EBR.
Yeah, I've seen. I'll try and overlay another photo of that. It's a pretty sweet looking rifle. And at one point, you attached a GL to the bottom of your M14, which the purists out there were sweating looking at that one, like, what is that?
Oh, not only that. If you look, there's also the grip bipod on the front of the grenade launcher. And I was gonna do a live round out of the grenade launcher, but the guys they had brought in the grenade launcher. We went to the range. I was busy zeroing my fucking M14, and they're off there firing off the 40 millimeter grenades, and they only brought like 6 of them. And then when I went up to them, they're like, "Oh, we shot them all." I was like, "Oh, you sons of bitches! I'm out here trying to get my fucking scope zeroed, and you guys are just wasting grenades." But I wanted to get a video of me firing the M14 with the grenade launcher underneath.
There's some wild videos of weapons. We've seen a suppressed and optic laden Maxim gun on footage recently.
Yeah,
I don't know where exactly that one was, but that was some Call of Duty stuff, man. You know, I've seen some wild footage.
One of my trophies from like 2015 was a Maxim gun, and I actually had it here for the longest time, and now the Territorial Defense has it. And I actually know I knew where it was at the beginning of the war. I knew what checkpoint had it. Now I don't know where it is because that checkpoint got torn down. You know, after the fact that Russia's not going to be, blitzing through these cities.
You have a few trophies. You have a Makarov. You have an APS.
Shh.
That's on the Instagram.
We don't discuss what trophies I have.
That's on Instagram, boss.
It's
on Instagram.
Those could be.
It says
those could be
on the post that these are your trophies. It says it on the post.
Those could be on my passport. Those you don't know. Those could be on my passport. Those could be my friends.
They're trophies from winning a game of backgammon, is what it is.
They are soldiers that I served with. Those are their guns. I don't take firearm trophies because that would be illegal. And if I get caught with them, that would be very bad. So I keep only spent tubes and demilled things that can't function as firearms anymore. Those are the only trophies I keep.
All right,
because everything else can land you in trouble.
I have $1 million question. You only have
what's that?
You only have one 30-round magazine, and you get a choice to an M4, kitted the way you'd like, just general purpose, or an AK of any, just from a platform perspective. We're not going to go down into caliber. What's your pick?
Can I do 300 blackout or 6.8?
I said M4. You get a choice. You get a choice. No, you can't change the parameters.
Okay, so it has to be a 5.56 M4.
U.S. government issue M4 or AK.
And then what's the mission? Am I in the truck with my 50 cal, or am I running a trench? Am I in the villages doing some sneaky breaky shit?
Some sneaky breaky shit. You know, there's a running joke.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're familiar with. There's a running joke that the Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republic are all scavengers from the game Escape from Tarkov. Are you familiar with the game?
Yes, I am. I live that game every day.
In your opinion, though, that's actually. I'm glad you mentioned sneaky breaky. Do you find LPR and DPR are, much less better equipped, or much less equipped from, just a general kit perspective than Russian regulars?
The DNR, the DPR, the Nets People Republic that I've gone up against and known that we've gone up against were integrated into Russian airborne and Russian Marine units. So they were with the same groups of Russian regulars. Like, I've not had, excuse me, I have not had a interaction with just a unit of the Luhansk People's or Donetsk People's republics. Like, we haven't fought them directly. We will find they have their own little uniforms. They're not the Russian digital pattern. It's like this splotchy. I'll send you a photo of one of the uniform jackets that we took from the guys. So, I can't even remember what it looks like right now. We don't run into them so occasionally that, I can remember the pattern off them. But the ones that we've always gone up against have always been integrated into a regular army unit.
So they probably were sharing kit or,
Yeah, sharing capabilities, riding around in their vehicles, getting artillery from them, getting ammo and stuff from them.
Yeah. Okay. Do you and your team have run into any issues from a logistics perspective, finding ammo, receiving ammo, having ammo available, having grenades, rockets, etc.?
We talked about this on the last one where we had a sensitive items check.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we did.
We had the commander come down, the brigade commander come down, and he's like, we're going to do a sensitive item check on everything that has, like, the night vision, the scopes, the optics, the weapon systems. Like, one of the missions, I was given a grenade launcher, and that grenade launcher, while we were running away from being shelled by a tank, fell out of the holster. That's the 320. I used to have it on the bottom of my AK for a bit. So, like, I even mounted it on my AK and would use it on the AK. But I would be... So when we were running to get to the Humvees after they had shelled us with artillery to get out of the town, from that one mission where we were in that house for 14 hours straight, it actually fell out of the holster that it was on because we were underneath these trees. And so I think to this day it's still underneath that tree. And hopefully I can go back to that village now that it's been liberated, in the Mykolaiv region, and hopefully it's still there.
Might be somebody's trophy.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know. So it fell out, and they're like, hey, and this was like 6 months ago, and they're like, hey, we're looking for this grenade launcher. And I was like, oh yeah, I had that grenade launcher. I only had it for 3 missions, but this was the mission that it fell out on, and this is the person I reported it to. They found that team commander, and the team commander's like, oh yeah, I remember him saying that it got dropped. So,
So the key, one of the critical things, I'm recalling that conversation now that we talked about. There's this kind of running narrative that a lot of the small arms, and in some cases the larger systems, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but a lot of the small arms that are making their way to Ukraine are ending up on like some form of a black market. What I'm not going to ask whether or not they are, because that's kind of a loaded question. What's interesting about that, though, is the progression that we discussed last time of really not having any kind of sensitive items checks to now really being diligent about the tracking of sensitive items.
Yeah. So at the very beginning of the war, when I first got here a year ago, we had like they would just hand me a gun. You're like, here you go. I would sign a piece of paper, and then that was it, right? But then I would give that gun up and sign another piece of paper, and I'd have a different gun. And I'd be just running around. Like I had an AKS-74U, I had an FNC, I had a FN Scar, I had an M249, I had all these weapons, and there was zero accountability for these weapons at the very beginning, other than like a serial number scratched onto a piece of paper. I already understand that the SBU is going to come to me after this war because I live here and stuff. And they're probably going to come into this apartment, and they're probably going to come to where my business is, my commercial properties and stuff are, asking about like the AKS-74U, which was the very first weapon I had in this country. And they're like, oh, we can't find it in any of the arsenals, and question me about it. So,
but the interesting, like I said, the interesting thing is the development over time of some of those more refined procedures for, tracking and accountability of sensitive items. And when I say sensitive items, I mean everything from night vision to rockets to, rifles, pistols.
The ACOGs, the optics that we have, the laser range finders, the radios, everything that's a sensitive item. Same thing that we had in the military. That we had in the military, we have out here. And it just progressed over time. So at the very beginning, you had that 40-mile long convoy. They thought Kiev was going to fall. Like if that convoy hit Kiev, there would have been no way. And, these weapons would have just been turned into guerrilla fighting weapons, right? So who knows, those stacks of paper that have my signature on it probably get burned and stuff. And then there would be an insurgency in Ukraine against the Russian occupiers. But that never happened. So they're now going back and playing catch up to mark down and track down who had what weapon systems.
Yeah, that's something that's something that I think isn't talked about enough, is how close Russia truly got to Kyiv, right? I mean,
yeah, they were in Kiev.
Yeah.
They were not just in the outskirts. There was paratroopers inside the city. There was firefights inside the city. One of my lady friends who lives in the northwestern side of the city, there's a park we can't even go into because they haven't cleared it of the mines yet.
Yeah, there was absolutely, small incursions that made their way well into the city. There's footage of, at least one of those engagements that we have. It's our most watched video on the website.
Yeah. And it was probably the same engagement. This lady friend of mine, she was in Kiev, in her apartment when they were shooting it out in the street not next to hers, but the one after that. That's where they were. That's where she was.
Yeah.
And she remembers that day.
Yeah, we just went
on
the 1 year anniversary of the war starting. We went through the top most watched videos on our platform, and the number one watched video, was that one.
I remember. I think I sent you a message on one of the videos on about I don't remember what the video was or what the context was, but I sent you a message about it.
Yeah, it was. I did get a message from you shortly after that stream.
After that stream.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, and the weird thing is, you guys are watching that video. That's your most watched video. Millions of views of it. This girl, lady friend of mine, was there, and she remembers that day vividly. Like, I don't think I will ever show her that video, but we're driving by, and she's like, "This is where there were dead Russian bodies just on the street right there," and she remembers she could see them from where she was at.
So the message that you sent me, I just pulled it up, was the BMW Technical. Was you standing in front of the BMW Technical? I'll put that photo.
I know where that thing is.
Yeah.
I wanted to do. You can throw that photo out. It's we were just fucking around, so that's why I'm having that stupid look on my face. But yeah, I know where that BMW is, and it's still there.
I always wondered what happened to it.
I wanted to. I know who has control of that vehicle. I wanted to do a video of me firing the 50 cal. The guy that owns the vehicle and I, we don't speak often, but he knows who I am. He's been to some of my training courses when I'm firing off AT4s and 50 cals and stuff. And I actually wanted to fire an AT4 and the 50 cal out of that vehicle. Like, drive it up to the gun range, power slide into the gun range, fire off the 50 cal, and just fire off an AT4 and get out of there.
I mean, it might be one of my favorite technicals I've seen. I've got a whole lot of love for a good Hilux, with a Dishka on the back of it, but the BMW Technical.
You should see if we could ever figure out our freaking pickup truck situation, we're actually going to be throwing up a 50 cal mount onto it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, the person that kept on calling, interrupting our stream earlier, it was my plate armor delivery guy, and he's trying to figure out when and where we can meet so I can grab these freaking battleship armor plates from him. These just thick freaking armor plates that we're going to put onto one of the pickup trucks.
So that's one of the last kind of questions that I have for you was, and we talked about this one last time too, with the amount of like APCs, I mean Mat V's, Max Pro. Actually, you guys shouldn't have any Mat V's. The Max Pros. Why you guys keep still using Humvees? That's a question that I've seen flow every time I watch recce footage of Humvees. We talked about this last time, but I wanted to kind of recover it.
Yeah. I sent you a video, going on 2 months ago, back in January, where we were bracketed by a tank. And that's where the tank fired at us, missed, corrected, fired at us again, missed, and then it missed in front, it missed in behind, so it shot it over the middle. So it's 3 or 4 rounds, and that last round went right above my turret, so close that I could feel like that pressure wave as the round is flying through the air. It's parting the air particles around it. That thing hit me. You could just hear me kind of just shouting out because all I'm doing is I'm crouched in the turret like this. Like, here's the 50 cal. And I just feel this tank round fly over my head while we're trying to locate and extract some wounded Ukrainians. And it was just not nerve-wracking or anything. It was just frustration. It was a lot of just frustration that we're trying to find these people. They said that they were where we were supposed to be, and then they're like, oh, well, we see the Humvee, but you're in a different area. We're over here. We're like, that's not where you said you were. So, yeah, if we were in a fucking MRAP or some shit, that round would have hit the MRAP. It would have been a lot easier to hit a larger target.
MRAP's big as shit. That's a very, very tall vehicle. Yeah.
It's tall, it's wide, it's long, it's a fucking barn. And then same thing with the Cornet, right? When we were in that fighting position with the Humvee, The only thing sticking out of that fighting position was basically the turret of my Humvee. And I'm just shooting out of this fighting position, and the Hornet missile comes in and freaking hits the side of the berm, and just, the overpressure fucks up the Humvee, destroys the Humvee, fucks me up, fucks Doc up, throws Manak out of the car, fucks him up. Driver's perfectly fine again. But if that was an MRAP, it was a larger target that they could have painted and more likely could have hit the target itself.
So they're small, they're nimble,
Yeah, they're small, they're nimble. Russia, lately, not lately, since a while ago, they don't commit their tanks forward anymore. They will generally have the tanks in a 1, 2, 3 kilometers away shooting at us. And that's because that's one of the best ways that they can counter the NLAWs, which are horrific out here. And an NLAW itself, it's an entire unit, right? You got the javelin, you need the computer and the missile. With the NLAW, you don't. You just need a battery pack. You plug in the battery pack, you manipulate the weapon system to prepare it, and then you fire it. But those things only have 500 to 600 meter range. It's the tanks stay out of those ranges from the NLAWs specifically for that. But then that gives us an opportunity too, because they rarely hit us with first round hits at those ranges with a lot of these sight systems that they have on the Russian tanks. And we know this for a fact because we have the same tanks, we use the same tanks, and trying to hit a fucking Humvee or small vehicle or even a house from a kilometer, 2 kilometers away with the optics that the T-72, the T-80, the T-90 have, it's very difficult.
What do you think about, are you guys going to get a Bradley?
No, the Bradleys, the Abrams, the Leopards, all those fancy Western vehicles that are coming in soon, those are going to specifically built out brigades that are built for those. Those guys are getting trained right now in Britain, Germany, Poland, America. When those guys come back, the whole command, from what I understand, the whole command structure is being trained. So it's not just the soldiers being trained how to drive and shoot and do maintenance on these vehicles. The fucking command structure is being trained how to utilize these things effectively.
So it's top to bottom how to employ it from a command perspective and from just a usage perspective.
Yeah. So a lot of the issues that we were having at the beginning was we will train the guys on Western tactics, right? And all us soldiers were like, okay, well, we're going to do this Western tactics. And then some commander who never got his training on Western tactics were like, okay, we're going to rush Soviet style into that trench. So all that Western training and stuff, was going to waste. That's really what I was fighting against when I formed my team. When I really was able to show off my abilities to my commanders and my commanders' commanders, to show them as like, hey, if we do it this Western way, we can have a lot more success. And that's why they permitted me to build the team that I have now. And that's also why the only people that I recruit are prior Western military veterans. We don't, we're not taking in anybody that's like, oh, I've grown up shooting guns, or, oh, my dad was a Marine, so through osmosis, I'm a Marine. You don't even know the amount of people that message me. You get the same 3 questions. Were you part of the military? Why do you want to come here? And what did your family feel about you coming here? And you fucking fail one of those 3 questions, I don't fucking deal with you.
Just to kind of close out the thought that I had on the Bradleys, the Abrams, Leopards, Challenger. One of the biggest concerns that I've seen a lot of folks have is the concern that it would, like you covered, it would essentially be train them to drive it and shoot it, and give it to them, and then in a hodgepodge way, it's just then employed on the battlefield. What it sounds like you're saying is Ukraine is working to kind of doctrinalize the combined arms strategy of using, main battle tanks with infantry fighting vehicles in support. They're building units, entire structures, command structures around this Western equipment rather than just throwing it straight into the fight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Are you upset that you're not getting a Bradley?
I would love one. I've been in one Bradley. I've only been in a Bradley one time, right? And they showed me the controls. I got to play around in the turret for a little bit, and just the optics on that thing. Like, I played around in the turret of T-72, the T-72 that we stole. I played around with the optics and stuff. I've done shit with that tank. And it's absolutely, it's even a Bradley from the 90s is better than a T-90 produced last month.
Yeah, a lot of folks will make a comparison of armament and armor relative to which system is better. But because they don't happen to have the insight on the sensor suite, the optics, they can't really account for that when it comes to the capability of the system in its entirety. And one of the capabilities, the major capabilities of Abrams and Bradley, is that sensor suite, being able to target and effectively fire without ever being seen in the first place.
Yes. And not only that, too, they take the numbers that are on paper and then they look at it. They're like, oh, it can withstand this much punishment. It can shoot at this range. It can hit targets at this far away. But that's not the reality in war. I mean, it's like the same reason why I choose the weapons I choose. Like when I said I would choose if I'm just going on a mission tomorrow, to go recce this area. We're not expecting vehicles, but the possibility that a vehicle could be in the area, I'm going to take an RPG-7. But if we're going to go out and hunt a vehicle or something, I will lug around an AT-4 or Carl Gustav, specifically to take out that vehicle. And we have a lot of these guys. I had this one guy, and he was just crying because I'm still alive, and he was like, "Why aren't the Russian tanks, like that Russian tank should have killed you? Why aren't those BTRs killing you? Why aren't any of the things why aren't any of the things working?" And it's the capabilities that a lot of the stuff that we're going up against is really a paper tiger, right? Russia for the longest time said the Kornet is better than the TOW or the Javelin missile, right? But the way that the Kornet locks on and tracks a vehicle, a laser beam hits the vehicle, bounces back, and as the Kornet's flying, it just rotates in the air like this. And it's only focused on that laser beam. It doesn't see terrain or anything. So when it smacks into the terrain like it did next to us, it missed. I mean, it hit the terrain and exploded before it hit our Humvee, which was very fortunate for us. But, if they fired a fucking javelin, we were in javelin range too. If they fired a javelin at us, we would have been done.
Well, it's a good thing they didn't.
Yeah. I got a video. I'll send you this video. This guy has, he's a Russian YouTuber, or a pro-Russian YouTuber in Donetsk, I believe, and he has like an AT-4 and he goes to fire it, and it's hilarious.
What's funny
doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
I don't want to ruin it for you. I posted it on Reddit just recently, and I don't want to ruin it for you.
All right, you got to link. You got to link it for me then. All right, buddy. Well,
yeah,
I think
it's hilarious.
I think it's just about time for us to close out. We're going to be approaching, with everything cut and edited, probably somewhere around an hour and 40 or so at this point.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking some time out, and I'm happy to hear that Doc's on the mend, that you are on the mend, or are mended, at least to the extent you can be. I'll have links to everything down in the descriptions, and if you wouldn't mind doing me a favor and just, I know you're headed back soon, check in.
I will.
And give me a good rendition of "Row, Row, Row Your Boat" before that happens.
Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream.